The Diaspora Broadcasting Network, where we feature the members of the Indian diaspora, the who's who are making changes, telling their stories of success and the works that they have gone ahead and accomplished. My first guest on the show is Mukesh Aghi, the President and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. He leads the board of the Fortune 500 companies in the United States and is committed to strengthening the political and economic partnership between India and the United States. Let's take a look at his story. He is the chairman and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum.
Today, India-US trade is around $162 billion. We believe the potential is around $500 billion from two countries. Now, as the trade ties gets deeper, broader, yes, you will have disagreements, but I also strongly believe that you have enough maturity on both sides to be able to handle those issues.
He is committed to strengthening the political and economic partnership between India and United States.
When we were launched to work on that, be an institution which is bipartisan and focus on and building a strong partnership between two countries, be it geopolitical, be it from a citizen to citizen, or on a technology area, or on a health vaccine arena itself. So we have a strong board made up of Fortune 500 companies, which focuses on ensuring that we are driving agenda which is a win-win for both countries.
He leads the most influential board of Fortune 500 companies.
US companies stepped up and said, listen, we need to ensure that India gets what it needs. And I would say within a 4-week time frame, we were able to raise and export almost $100 million worth of supplies to India. As of today, I would say we have exported roughly around 33,000 oxygen concentrators, a massive amount of almost 270 tons of medical supplies and cryogenic oxygen tanks.
He's liaising to enable Quad economies to build secure supply chains.
We move forward on the Quad partnership between 4 economies, Australia, Japan, US, and India. You have to understand they make almost $33 trillion economy among the 4. And there's a tremendous opportunity for India to move within the Quad into the economic zone.
VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network proudly presents Mukesh Aghi on NewsX. Well, hello and welcome to NewsX VaKu. Joining me on the broadcast today is a very special guest, Mukesh Aghi, who is the President and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, which is amongst the most influential change-making business body, not-for-profit forum, which helps India and America come closer together when it comes to trade ties and economic relations. Welcome on the show, Mukesh. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Mukesh, my first question would be with regards to the operations that US-India Strategic Forum goes ahead and takes forward. And that's quite the humongous task that is burdened upon you, bringing about opportunities for citizens in India and citizens living in the United States for a changing geopolitical scenario that the world and especially US and India see. And how do you envisage at this point the future of the Indian diaspora and India's long-term growth prospects in relation to United States?
Well, you have to understand the most two important relationships between the two countries in 21st centuries is India and the United States. Mm-hmm. And the question is, when you have democracies, they can be messy. So you need an institution which focuses on trying to drive an agenda which is beyond the terms of politicians and bureaucrats. And that's the reason we were launched to work on that, be an institution which is bipartisan and focus on and building a strong partnership between two countries, be it geopolitical, be it from a citizen to citizen, or on a technology area, or on a health vaccine arena itself. So we have a strong board made up of Fortune 500 companies, which focuses on ensuring that we are driving agenda, which is a win-win for both countries.
Okay, I'll shift my focus to the geopolitical situations that the world is facing, especially United States and India. I'm talking about China. Now, how can American companies recalibrate themselves to the pivot to Asia policy and focus on investments in supply chains coming into India in view of the Chinese diktats and draconian regulations for operating inside the mainland? There are stories galore. Like only yesterday, there was, Kodak that had to remove one of those Instagram pictures that had been posted by one of the artists, which called Xinjiang and the Uyghur situation, the Orwellian dystopia. There have been issues when it comes to the Apple stores that have been operating out of mainland China. We are talking about Disney, a lot of these film production companies that have to follow the norms, the political norms of the Chinese Communist Party to ensure their survival and to ensure that they thrive in the mainland. Keeping in mind that's the world's largest population, so revenues also are a significant chunk to be reminded of. So how do we fight this policy versus capitalistic agendas that American companies at this point of time are in a conundrum of? And would there be a possibility of allowing for these supply chains and companies to come invest in India, keeping in mind the relationship is more fluid and it's a more liberal economy over here?
Well, China is a challenge for United States. China is a challenge for India. And it's a bigger challenge for India because India has a border of 3,000 kilometers. And it keeps on poking at India in every way it can, and especially in its partnership with Pakistan. So from a geopolitical perspective, there's an alignment between India and the United States as to how do you tackle the rise of China in a international rule of law and order itself. China does not believe in that. China does not want to abide by that. China wants to build its own new international order, which basically is more of a diktat from that perspective. So I think from that perspective, India, US are completely aligned. The challenge is that the current pandemic and abrasive nature of China has brought up a risk of global supply chain. A lot of companies set up their global manufacturing in China. Now they're saying that we need to de-risk that, and India becomes an opportunity from that perspective. And what we're saying is as India opens up its economy, as India drives incentive program for these companies, especially in the PLI program, we're seeing more and more US companies coming into India, setting up, or I would say de-risking their manufacturing from China. But this is a start of the process, but you have to understand there's a bigger issue. And the bigger issue is, for example, India supplies 40% of the generics to the United States, but almost 70% of the API for generic drugs comes from China. How do you de-risk that? In the last 12 months, the cost of this API has gone up by 140%. Why? Because China is taking advantage of that. So I think there is a better alignment, better coordination, and we work both with the government of India and also with the US government to see how we de-risk that. And next week, we have Secretary Blinken coming in, and main focus will be a discussion on China itself.
And has there been any momentum that has been gained from your forum towards the Biden administration, any sort of guidelines, any sort of communication, conversations in this regard?
We are working on almost on a daily basis on all these issues. We are feeding them our policy document. We are recommending partnerships itself. So that process it has gained a lot of momentum. They're working with us, and we strongly believe in the Quad. The economic benefit is tremendous, and both countries and all four countries should leverage that.
Absolutely. And we talk about vaccine diplomacy, and US ISPF has played a very strategic role in the past few months in providing financial aid, procuring medical supplies during the wave 2 that hit India tremendously. There was also this concerted effort of bringing these multinationals, Fortune 500 companies together to ensure that there was medical supply, there was finances that were taken care of in India's time of need. If you could care to elaborate on how did you go about bringing about this magnanimous effort to ensure that India was provided for at the time of its need?
Well, you have to understand last year when US was in trouble with the COVID crisis, it is India which stepped up and opened up its border to export a lot of medicines to India. And as India went through its own challenges this year, it was time to pay back. It was time to reciprocate. And US companies stepped up and said, listen, we need to ensure that India gets what it needs. And I would say within a 4-week time frame, we were able to raise and export almost $100 million worth of supplies to India. As of today, I would say we have exported roughly around 33,000 oxygen concentrators, a massive amount of almost 270 tons of medical supplies and cryogenic oxygen tanks. I think it's not about just trying to give back. I think it's a true partnership. You have to understand, we have almost 5 million Indian Americans who are connected back to India. There was a lot of emotional attachment to the country of their birth itself. So they also stepped up itself. So I think you have to understand beyond the Quad, beyond the trade, you have a very strong emotional attachment by the Indian diaspora, which will step up when there's a need to ensure they can support the country of their birth also.
Okay, and finally, there are quite a few opportunities that the Western world is looking when it comes to investing in India, when it comes to ease of doing business in India. But what are the kind of deliberations that would be required in the ongoing policy reforms within our country that would help in further enabling foreign players to come into India and do business in a much smoother fashion?
Well, you have to understand companies such as Uber, Google, Amazon, they're all banned in China. India has opened the door. Yes, we have a way to go trying to make an equitable playing field for these players. We have a way to go to meet global standards in having transparency. But at least India has opened up its market. They are listening. They are listening to our policy suggestions. There are sometimes challenges, such as what happened with MasterCard or the e-commerce draft policy, which is coming in. But we are optimistic. We are hopeful that government of India will listen to our recommendations, suggestions, because we mean well for both sides of the border itself. And so the interest by US companies is tremendous. You can see year to year, during this crisis also, the FDI from US is up by 19%. And in my discussion with US companies, they see India as a market which they will keep on investing. But at the same time, it's important that Indian government, the policymaker, keep on opening up the market, keep on having transparency to ensure that there's a win-win partnership between the two countries itself.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you, Mukesh Aghi, for joining me on this very special conversation on NewsX VaKu. I wish to have you again and again on the broadcast with us to share your inputs, your analysis, and all that is happening with the Indian diaspora business community and the ties that continue to burgeoin between India and America and in the future as well.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, my next guest is Annette Phillips. She is a musician, an educator, and an arts entrepreneur. She is an Emmy-nominated TV personality and has collaborated with several Grammy-winning artists, including A.R. Rahman and Zakir Hussain. She is an Emmy-nominated TV personality, a musician, an educator, and an arts entrepreneur.
I've been very fortunate that right from a very young age, I think I tapped into the fact that I am obsessed with sound and I love creating mega productions, big ideas, dreaming really far out and bringing a lot of people together to do, concerts and theatrical adaptations and, just out of the box sort of productions. I'm a production girl through and through.
She has performed with several Grammy Award-winning artists, including A.R. Rahman and Zakir Hussain.
Across the world, Indian music is so fascinating for people, as they learn about how old and ancient our musical and cultural traditions are, and the fact that we have not one but two, classical traditions from the north and the south, as well as, the plethora of folk music traditions that exist, and of course now the melding of, contemporary Indian music with jazz and other, genres. So I think all over the world, people are fascinated by the intricacy of the melodies, the intricacy of the rhythmic structures, the way music is passed down, the oral tradition that exists in India, the Guru Shishya Parampara, all those things are very fascinating.
She studied at the Berklee College of Music in Boston and currently is a faculty member there.
Now the most, I would say, well-known ensemble that has grown out of Berklee. We have around 230 million hits, and these are all organic views that have come through. And if you think about it, it started out as a class. This year, 2021, is our 10th anniversary, and we are launching an 11-member ensemble as a professional touring ensemble that is Berklee's first, actually, to go out onto the road.
VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network proudly presents Annette Phillip on NewsX.
Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX VaKu. My name is Megha Sharma, and joining me on the broadcast is Annette Phillip. She's a musician, educator, and arts entrepreneur. She's a versatile vocalist from Kerala and now based in Boston, Massachusetts. She's a seasoned recording artist, composer, pianist, a voiceover pro, and an Emmy-nominated personality. And Annette has founded the Berklee Indian Ensemble as well. And she has performed with many Grammy Award-winning artists, including A.R. Rahman, Bill Whelan, Zakir Hussain, and many, many more. So Annette, welcome on the show. It's truly an honor to host you.
Thank you so much, Megha, and thank you to NewsX and also the whole VaKu network. Thank you for bringing all of us together.
Annette, going and taking a look at your versatile background in terms of the kind of works that you have taken on, the kind of people that you have worked with, the kind of projects that you've gone ahead and succeeded in completing, it's an exhaustive list. If you could tell me a little about how does the energy come to bring about everything on a platter?
Oh, well, I think when you're doing something that you absolutely love and that, you wake up in the morning excited to get started on, the energy is sort of there. It's like an instant download, And so I've been very fortunate that right from a very young age, I think I tapped into the fact that I am obsessed with sound, and I love creating mega productions, big ideas, dreaming really far out, and bringing a lot of people together to do, concerts and theatrical adaptations and, just out of the box sort of productions. I'm a production girl through and through. And once I realized that and sort of, kind of leaned into it, things just started to open up. And of course, as I started with, if you love something completely with your whole heart and your stomach and your brain and your whole spirit is into it, the energy is automatic. And so, yeah, I have tons of it. And of course, I have ups and downs. I mean, there's definitely days where there's a lot of howling and venting and worrying as well. But I think I have a quick bounce back spirit. So that's been very helpful.
Okay. Talking about your musical journey, what are the new overtures? What are the new adventures that you've gone ahead and indulged in? If you could share some details about that.
Sure. Yeah, well, I continue to work with my a cappella group. It's called Women of the World, and we currently sing in about 37 of the world's languages. And so this is a quartet, 4 singers, one from Japan, a Haitian from who's also an American citizen, an Italian, and of course me from India. And that group has been around for several years, since 2008, and we continue to tour. We actually just started doing touring now that lockdown is starting to end. And also on the other side, there was an interesting project that I just completed with our former Berklee president, who just retired on June 30th. His name is Roger H. Brown, and he has always loved India. He was the president of Berklee for 17 years, and he's been such a fan of Rabindranath Tagore's writing, and specifically his poetry. And 2 years ago, he asked me about doing a project together. And I later found out that the poem that he chose, called Earth, was also used by him and his wife in their wedding 34 years ago. And that just made it so precious. So we started writing, and we've done a theatrical adaptation of Tagore's vivid poetry. And it came together so beautifully. We've just released it about a week ago. And we've had the amazing Grammy-winning Antonio Sanchez on drums, John Patitucci on bass, Dennis Montgomery on Hammond, Tia Fuller on saxophone, and a choir, a string quartet. Just a beautiful group of musicians coming together to bring Tagore's poetry to life with a global lens, really.
Isn't that wonderful? Tagore being a world figure himself, and now you're going ahead and bringing about his poems and building them into musicals, which is beautiful. And the fact that the entire world is being able to recreate this sort of legacy that Tagore left for not just Indians but the entire world. And another question that pops in my head is the fact that you going ahead and coming together with all these fabulous musicians, singers, composers, and they are from all parts of the world. How do they witness? How do they look at Indian music, Indian musicians? I also know that they're like the likes of A.R. Rahman, Shreya Ghoshal, they have all been venerated in the Western musical fraternity as well. So how does the melange look like?
Well, I think, across the world, Indian music is so fascinating for people, as they learn about how old and ancient our musical and cultural traditions are. And the fact that we have not one but two, classical traditions from the North and the South, as well as, the plethora of folk music traditions that exist. And of course, now the melding of, contemporary Indian music with jazz and other, genres. So I think all over the world, people are fascinated by the intricacy of the melodies, the intricacy of the rhythmic structures, the way the music is passed down, the oral and the oral tradition that exists in India, the Guru Shishya Parampara, all those things are very fascinating for people. And there's a great deal of respect for, both the complexity, the tradition, and also the fact that it has stayed alive all these years and is just getting stronger and stronger, and that it's so intense. I mean, it's a lifelong immersion to learn Indian music of any kind. And, so we've had an opportunity at Berklee to bring Indian music, Indian culture, even Indian textiles, saris, things like that, Indian food to the community. And there are 105 musicians at Berklee. 105 countries represented at Berklee. Mm-hmm. And it's been beautiful to see how they absorb this music and how they also then reinterpret our music and our traditions in their own way, bringing their cultural elements to it. So yeah, it's been a fascinating journey, and who knows what the future holds, but we want to do a lot more collaboration. And I think that's the way to keep growing.
Absolutely. And Anat, you're doing a great service when you go ahead and become a representative of India and going ahead and spreading the culture, the music of our, when it comes to our traditions, when it comes to our musical culture, be it from the northern part of the country or the southern part of the country, and so much of the folk music also that constitutes what the entire cultural musical aspect of India is. I thank you so much for joining me on this broadcast. And while we can go ahead and talk for hours about how this melange is taking place and how the Western musical fraternity is at this point of time and has always been in awe of Indian music, and they're continuing to discover more and more aspects. And you are amongst those few individuals who are allowing for this discovery and rediscovery to take place every step of the way. I wish you all the very best, and congratulations for all your new endeavors that you are taking forward.
Thank you so much, Megha, and thank you for this platform that you've been creating with NewsX. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
NewsX ITV network have proudly launched the VaKu Diaspora Broadcasting Network. VaKu DBN will be India's first mainstream platform dedicated to the diaspora community. Help support us, become VaKu patrons at memboro.com/VaKu. You will get the first access to our interviews, make recommendations, merchandise access, ask questions, and get a shout out of thanks on our TV shows. You can also suggest to us who should get the VaKu Golden Chakra Awards, and also tell us who should get into the VaKu Hall of Fame. Limited memberships are available at 100 rupees per month on Memboro VaKu. Sign up now, log on to memboro.com/VaKu.